Of dry beans, maize flour, that is, Irish potatoes, eggs, and green grams also increased, underlining the country's depressed agricultural production that has been aggravated by climate change, with droughts occurring more frequently. Data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows that prices of excisable goods such as beer and cigarettes also rose sharply between 2012 and 2021, pointing to increased excise duty, popularly known as sin tax. So this is what is on the front page of the Business Daily, and they have an illustration there of items whose prices have risen fastest in 10 years. I see skuma wiki, beer, a slab of beef there, tomatoes, what is that, margarine, and maize. We'll leave the Business Daily there, but interesting report down here. I see Westlands apartment rents the highest in Nairobi. Westlands has the highest monthly rents for apartments in Nairobi, and amid a high demand from middle-income Kenyans and expatriates, offering property developers lucrative returns. So that is the front page, or most of the front page of the Business Daily. Let's take a look at the Taifa Leo before we delve a little deeper into some of these stories. Ruto apenya ngome ya Kalonzo, rais atumia minofu kuvutia ukambani macho yakiwa kwa 2027 mwaka wa 2027. And then the headline is this: talaka ya Azimio yaiva, kujiuzulu kwa Uhuru na lalama za washirika wake katika muungano huo kuashiria mpasuko unaonukia siasa. Rais mstaafu apanga kujiondoa, huku washirika wa muungano huo wakianza kurushiana cheche za maneno, mbali na baadhi ya wandani wa Raila kuegemea upande wa rais na Ruto, ukurasa wa pili. And then there's a quote here from Professor John Lonyangapuo. He says, kwa sasa Azimio ndio tisho kuu kwa demokrasia, utawala wa sheria na uwiano nchini. My understanding is that it means that Azimio is the greatest threat to democracy. All right. So who is on the front page here? I see Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, shall we call them principals? Gideon Moi, Kalonzo Musyoka. That report at the top there talked about President William Ruto wooing, or rather seeking to claim victory in Kalonzo's backyard. Martha Karua and John Lonyangapuo, who is the former West Pokot governor. All right, so gentlemen, I'm curious what you make of this Taifa Leo headline, talaka ya Azimio yaiva. I'll start with you, Daktari.
I think they are right in the sense that Azimio was a badly arranged marriage. It was a marriage of people who had not spent enough time courting and agreeing on what their core values were. It was an assembly of people who already had homes but decided to still get married anyway. They had their own marriage but decided to join a bigger marriage. So what is happening is that people are now finding space in their original homes. So Jubilee, for example, are realizing that they can't organize around the idea of Azimio. So they must pull out to rethink and look at how Central is organizing. And there will be others like Kanu and even Wiper that will have to rethink how do we organize post the general election 2022. And that might mean after the 6 months, or after that period, I think 3 months, after the period of 3 months, it means that any of the parties in the Azimio coalition can rethink whether it wants to stay in or not. But that said and done, our politics are organized on the basis of interests. And as soon as interests cede or interests dissipate, then people begin to look elsewhere. What did you hear this week? None other than Aida Odinga saying she is wondering. There were people who used to visit. Those people were not interested in Baba. Those people were sure Baba was going to be the president and therefore wanted to secure their personal interests.
They ate at her home,
yeah,
and went ahead to betray them.
Yes. So even for those who are joining Azimio, and you could see UDM was the first one to show you they were not interested in Azimio. All they wanted is to be close to power. If Azimio was going to be, They quickly ran there. As soon as they realized Azimio was not, they ran to the other side. So our issues have to be understood, and our politicians are chasing interests. We've just seen what Cecily Kariuki has said. That, oh, you see, I am now supporting the government of the day. Why? Interest. Because she realizes that opposition is very cold, or going against government can be very tough. So basically, we need to accept, we organize temporarily around the elections, depending on who is likely to win. After the elections, we kowtow to the government of the day.
All right, you talked about this 3 months. So this is according to the Political Parties Act.
And also the Azimio coalition instrument.
Okay. Professor Gitile Naituli, would you have expected President Uhuru Kenyatta to be more vocal, to be trying to marshal the troops together rather than retreat even further back into what he says are, let me find the description here, to focus on regional peace efforts?
I would never have expected Uhuru Kenyatta to organize anything because he really doesn't have capacity to organize. I mean, you have to understand that Uhuru as a politician actually has never organized any party or anything because the way he came to power, remember he lost twice in Nikatundu. And then nominated, then he came into government, and then ICC came, and then Ruto basically took over and sold him to us. So even this, as president, he's the one who was trying to organize Azimio, and you can see now what has happened to it, because it wasn't founded on any philosophy. It was founded, it didn't even have an agenda, actually, as a matter of fact. So I expect Uhuru to do what he is doing, buy peace, just go peaceably somewhere else, because he under a vehicle, they made him drive, or he made himself driver of a vehicle that basically didn't have wheels. It's not connected. So what he's doing is correct. If you look at the structure of Azimio, I mean, it was incredible. 40% of government to a retiring president. Out of 19 national seats, what we call national council, 12 of were reserved for Jubilee. So you try to figure out where was Raila's role in that Azimio, you don't place him. And he was the presidential candidate. So it is natural that Azimio disintegrated too early because of that. But otherwise, the whole idea of our coalition is a good one. In fact, the people now remaining, Kalonzo Musyoka and Martha Karua, if I can advise them, they should actually try to strengthen this Azimio instead of dismantling it. But then give it with the Uhuru out and discarding that agreement which was supposed to be there, they can allow Jubilee to go because Jubilee will have no relevance in Central Kenya. I mean, if there is anything the Central Kenya hates, they hate in Jubilee the same way they hate in Kano. So Jubilee leaving means exactly nothing. This is why the people now around Azimio, that is Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and Martha Karua, they actually should organize and focus and either strengthen the Azimio as a coalition or create a new coalition which is bringing the three of them together. And then just stay, watch how the politics work out. Because in the end, people swing. Central Kenya, there is a big leadership vacuum, which now they are trying to find somebody to fill it. Okay? So I don't think they should allow the organization to die because Uhuru is exiting. Uhuru had no role. In my opinion, I think allowing Uhuru to end that organization was a part of the reason why they lost the election.
All right. Charles, do you agree with Prof that Jubilee is not, makes no difference to Central Kenya?
Well, let me put it this way. I think Azimio started dying a while back. Yeah, you remember the current Speaker of the Senate, and I think Governor, the CS, is it Foreign Affairs?
Yes.
Filed for what we would call judicial separation. They remain married, but they are away. They are not in that marriage, as it were. So in terms of Azimio, as was Azimio coalition political party, as it was crafted, because it was a hybrid between a political party and a coalition, as we know it. It was not properly done, and I remember it was said to be pushing people to remain in a union that they are not interested in without leaving a window or even a door slightly open so that in the event you want to leave, you can leave. And that's basically what democracy is all about. If you want to leave, you should leave, and the terms should be clear. You should not be tied down for a year plus. And that's why you could see MPs, members of parliament, of each respective political party, trooping into former deputy president Ruto's home, especially after he was declared the winner before the due process of the law. And then no political party, their respective political parties, including Wiper, did not initiate any process of punishing them for doing so. So they were okay with whatever it is that was going on. So I think these arrangements are for convenience, if you ask me. And now that it's no longer convenient to remain together, it is possible that this is coming a cropper. In my honest opinion, I think the former president should not have been the chairman of Azimio in the first instance.
Exactly.
It was wrong, because what that did is stop the region from naturally settling on someone else who would have replaced him, and by extension come with the votes. So he became the center of focus in as far as the voters in the region are concerned, and blows were easy to land on him because he was almost defenseless. And if you look at even how the voting pattern ended, even his MCA is a UDA MCA, and that should be telling. Yana, if the current president of Jubilee, one of the largest party that you can imagine, a political party, cannot land an MCA seat, his own MCA in his own home. I mean, come on, you want to hang on in there as a chairman? I don't think so. So I think leaving is good. The subsequent things that will happen, including everyone pulling out and pulling away and reorganizing and doing all those things, and even changing names, because that's what happens in this country. You just need to change names and have the same guys installed as the leaders of this, the other one, and you can get away with it. But as long as you have talking about some of these political parties, I think it will be very difficult, for example, to sell Jubilee, especially in the mountain region. If you look at even the persons who won on that particular political party, they are not from Mount Kenya region. A majority of them are not from there. And remember, this is the same party 5 years earlier that won so many seats across the country, you know. So basically, something was lost along the way. The assumption was, let us put together big guys, gatekeepers as it were. They'll bring their people through their own political outfits, and then we'll have a very big political unit moving forward, composed of these small little groupings that now have this support back home. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Completely did not work. And I think that forms the basis of some of the discussions you're going to have on why this thing was lost.
All right, so
you see, the reason why the Azimio did not enforce the agreement on the people who are defecting, they realized that constitutional provisions cannot be overridden by an agreement or even an act of parliament. So Article 38, the right to choose to join a political party and so on, you can't say that that provision, that now I can actually, an agreement that there's no more force of law than the constitutional provision. So they realize enforcing that is futile.
I think the issue here is not even that. Azimio could not punish individual. Remember, Azimio is a party of parties. So Azimio cannot punish independent members of political parties. So the fact that the political parties themselves did not take the initiative to punish their respective members that were going errant, then that is telling. It means they were sort of like okay with what was happening.
And you see, this argument that Professor is making needs to be fought off. The reason why political parties gives you room to make a choice does not mean that it is inconsistent with the Constitution. But if you make a choice and sign on it and agree to it, then the Constitution also expects you to enforce, to abide by it. So that you can't say that, you go in, sign, and then you say you are free to leave. That is a bit lawless. And we must tell people that they must live with the consequences of their actions. In fact, there's a writer who says that one has to live with the nightmare of their choices. So once you make a choice, you must live with it. But that said also, let's not leave this argument about Uhuru leaving Azimio as if it's a political decision. By law, Uhuru is supposed to leave or to decide one or the other, if he must retire and if he must get his benefits, he must leave off politics.
So he must exit the political
Yeah,
scene.
within 6 months. So he has up to February 2023 to leave. So I'm sure he'll choose to leave because he also wants to retire. There's a good package for him. He can still do other things without necessarily hindering his retirement package and so on. So by law, he has to leave.
All right.
And I
Daktari,
think
you
he
see why
chooses
it is
to
important you sit on this panel.
I was avoiding, Olive, I was avoiding going there because it would look a little interesting that someone who wanted to win the presidency for Raila is leaving simply because of benefits. I think the underlying issues are bigger than that. Otherwise, now it will look like, oh, I don't want to lose my benefits. You guys can go sink. Me, I'm fine with my benefits, and then I go home. If he had a bigger vision for this, then he would have sacrificed the
He didn't have.
He
He
has
was
no
there,
idea
as
of
Professor
what
said, because he wanted to secure his legacy and also wanted to secure certain positions. Now those positions are not there.
Yeah.
These guys are not in the government. He had better leave as well.
All right.
Anyway.
So what does that mean for the Jubilee leadership? Because he is the party leader.
He is resigning from it, so
Yeah.
they'll have to go and find another party leader.
So
And
they will have to reorganize. Charles proposed maybe
I
just...
have a feeling Raila is going to
don't-
take that thing. If
And Jubilee or Azimio.
Azimio, if it remains as Azimio, I don't see anybody else taking that one. It will
What
look-
happens with Jubilee?
You see, like he
Jubilee-
explained, there's
Jubilee,
something...
Jubilee number one is doing horribly, especially in Mount Kenya region. And even those guys that are talking on behalf of Jubilee, even on the video that we are discussing about
Yes.
what happened, they are not
Jeremiah
politically respected in the region, if you ask me.
You're saying Jeremiah Kioni is not politically...
the people who want...
And you will, it is telling. You will see how people perform. That's basic. So I don't think they are able to sell Jubilee to anybody. So they either that outfit is going to be refashioned into something else, or they'll join other political parties. But remember, there's some little funding as well. So I think there are people who are going to hang around there. We must be candid. Because of what the monies that are there, we will pretend that we are reorganizing Jubilee. But politics of this country are such that the moment you are a huge political party and then the reins hit you really big, it is very hard for you to come back. You can have the name, you can have all these trappings of a political party, but deep down you don't have the requisite support to win any serious positions in the country.
All right.
There's political funding. There's money. So
people-
somebody has to stay there. Somebody has to run the party, has to pay the bills, and has to pay himself or themselves. And there's money.
I want to say one thing. Jubilee does have MPs from Central Kenya. It has 2 from Meru. I think there's an MP from Nyandarua, if you're not, then in Nakuru, Bahati. So I think there's almost 7 or 6 MPs for Jubilee. But if you look at those fellows, they were elected on their own, not because of the party. They were basically elected on their own. You see, Jubilee people don't understand that they lost traction actually with the Central Kenyan before the election of 2017. 2017 marked a very low turnout in the Central Kenya. People were already not interested in Uhuru Kenyatta then as even as a candidate. People are already started losing faith in that, and that's why we realized the handshake actually came to assist in Jubilee to survive. Because without the handshake in Jubilee, we would have serious challenges in 2018 and 2019 because of financial mismanagement, which had already occurred. They misinvested. So you remember there were very painful taxes which were put through after the handshake. Without the handshake, I don't think those taxes would have gone through, meaning that in Jubilee we are going to have a crisis then as a government because they had already won the election. So I think Raila, not so brilliantly, went to save Uhuru Kenyatta and then Jubilee administration.
All right.
With the handshake.
So we need to take a break, but Raila Odinga is a subject on the front page of the Star. Raila, big dilemma over Ruto's push to change the law. Azimio leader's opposition to changes may alienate him further may alienate him further from his MPs, all right? So we take a break, but when we come back on the other side of the break, we get into this conversation. How to lose an election. What do Azimio insiders' reflections reveal? This special report by Kennedy Mureithi is available if you haven't had a chance to view it on ntvkenya.co.ke. Tukutane huo upande mwingine.
Forever my love.
Make M-Pesa Go the safe and secure way your teens go cashless. Register your 10 to 17-year-olds via the M-Pesa app or Safaricom shop. It's go time.
Want to know the biggest story of the week? Do not worry. The Weekly Review has got you covered for in-depth analysis of politics, business, governance, as well as social issues. The Weekly Review covers it all. For well-researched, exclusive and investigative content, read the Weekly Review every Sunday on Nation e-paper and on www.nation.africa, free of charge.
FIFA would have just said, you know what, let's do this. We will give you the song. Do a vote, a global vote. Which song do people prefer? Do you prefer this one or this one? Okay, fine. So every World Cup cycle, you just refine it. Give it a local flavor. Because this song is forgettable.
Let me try and give you something about it. Hopefully it will make it less forgettable. They say this music video done for the song, it celebrates the groundbreaking inclusion of female referees at the World Cup. That's why they're all in the video.
That's fantastic.
But it's the beat you have a problem with.
Yes, because music is about what you're hearing, not what you're seeing.
I get you, because this was fantastic.
It gives you that, like, you feel like standing up.
Spot On, in association with Visa.
Tap to pay with your Visa card and live the action this FIFA World Cup. Visa, official FIFA World Cup partner.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything from A to Z, even vitamin C, but hardly any results. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one, with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Big things come in small packages, and now you have millions of reasons to find them. Millions of reasons to bring it to life with YouTube Shorts. Be the game. Millions of reasons to craft the story. Whatever you love, it's all in your hands. Hum the tune. Up to 60 million shillings worth of prizes to be won. With daily and weekly cash prizes to be won by over 3 million Kenyans, and one of them could be you. Watch, create, upload. Buy a daily YouTube bundle or create a YouTube short with the hashtag shorter is better and stand a chance to win. Dial *544# to get your 1 GB bundle for just 10 shillings.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. During the break, my panelists were in a heated exchange. Okay, let me not call it heated, but
Constructive.
Constructive.
Give it some
Constructive debate. I wanted to use the term animated.
Exactly.
Yes, animated. Had an animated discussion on the front page story of the Star, which is Raila's big dilemma over Ruto's push to change the law. Azimio leaders opposition to changes might alienate him further from his MPs. My understanding is because the omnibus contains proposals on CDF as well as the Senate Oversight Fund. I'm just looking at some of the quotes they have in this story on page 4 to 5. Do you have your Star? Do you have a copy of the Star? Okay,
Yes,
so pages 4 to 5. seeing that they quote the Kilifi North MP Owen Baya, who says Raila is salivating for the job, but would not want to be seen as a beneficiary of Ruto's presidency. And he's quoted as saying, I'm sure Raila will love to be the official opposition leader. The problem with him probably would be how it's done and who is making sure it is done. He may not want to be seen to be a beneficiary of the Ruto presidency, but I'm sure he would salivate at getting a position. I believe that is the same. Prof, is that the position you have taken?
Yeah, that's the same I've taken. I think.
All right, because they quote you a bit further down. They say University Don Gitile Naituli says Raila and his troops should support the proposed amendments for the good of the country. They quote you as saying, when you create an institution, you do not do it for an individual. Once the office is established, it can be occupied by anyone. Raila Odinga is not going to be there forever. In fact, Ruto may be the one occupying it after the next election. They go on, they quote Senator James Orengo. And sorry, have I skipped somebody? Prof, is this still you? I will not be. No. They're quoting Raila. And Orengo says the Constitution is a major document. You must involve the people first. That is why you saw during the BBI process, there's a team that went all over the country. Then I see Opio Wandai saying we are not going to engage on the merits or otherwise of those Ruto proposals at this stage until we issue a comprehensive official position as a coalition on the whole matter. John Buddy quoted as saying, I don't think Raila is interested in amending the constitution. He's actually, no, I beg your pardon, I don't think Ruto, this is Buddy saying, I don't think Ruto is interested in amending the constitution. He's actually playing politics on face value. He wants to demonstrate that he's interested in checks against his government through the office of the opposition leader. He also wants to hoodwink the women folk that he's interested in anchoring the gender equation and to hoodwink MPs that he's supporting CDF. He's playing politics so that if it fails, he will have removed himself from blame. They quote Senator Godfrey Osotsi as stating, all right, so I will leave it at that so that the Star doesn't tell me I have sold their paper on air.
Yes.
Some of the proposals, I do list some of the...
And Professor's views, which I don't agree with. you see, Oli, this country is bigger than Raila, is bigger than Ruto. We have a constitution that speaks for itself. It can be interpreted, it requires to be interpreted, but it speaks for itself. The arguments about the basic structure of the Constitution have been made. In this respect, I agree with those who are saying that what the President is doing here is throwing a carrot here, throwing a carrot there, saying gender, you see, I told Parliament to sort out gender. You saw, they said this. A CDF, let's try and entrench it so that MPs don't say I refused it. So everything he's doing is political. Okay, opposition, I'm giving you an official position, I'll give you a vehicle and so on. The point is this, that in this current constitution, there are certain fundamentals. For example, to implement the 2/3 gender rule, it's not a simple legislative imperative. It is, you have to revisit the basic structure of that constitution. Because you have to go back to our nature of democracy. You have to redo, first past the post, you have to undo it. In order for you to either decide is a proportional, mixed proportional representation or whatever, in order for you to achieve that gender thing. Otherwise, the way it has been put in this constitution, it cannot be realized in an elective process short of reworking the constitution itself. So it's not something you can pass without referendum, number one. Number two.
This is the 2/3 gender provision.
Yes, the 2/3 gender provision.
But it has been effected in the Senate, it has been effected in the county
It cannot. It is about elective. It says in elective. Now, you can't tell me that you can go to Kisumu or Kakamega or Meru and tell them that get a woman now, get a man now. Because this is an elective position. People elect the people that present themselves. People elect candidates that they have in parties.
But what about the argument that if parties and parties in their strongholds nominate women?
Short of a constitutional amendment, even parties would be, for example, why would my party decide that in my area it's a woman who runs and not a man? That would be tough.
I think he's right.
Just to agree with Wakili, but with a few pointers. First and foremost, remember IBC was mandated to ensure that the party lists for nominees that will pursue their respective seats was gender compliant. So why do we have a problem? Yet IBC was not accepting a list of nominees that did not meet that gender parity question. So like Wakili is saying, that one, at the moment, unless if we are going to implement it, naturally we cannot implement it now, we can only implement it in future, we cannot implement it retrospectively. We can only talk about nominating. It's that simple. We top it up like we do with county assemblies. County assemblies is very simple. You did not meet the gender equation, then you balance by way of nominating as many as is required to ensure you top it up. Otherwise, even if you present that person, two of them, the other party presents a gentleman in the respective constituency, then you have disadvantaged your political party, because the other guy might win purely on the basis of his or her gender. And I think that's an issue. It's a very, very big issue that needs to be looked at, so that we simplify these things. We give ourselves so many constituencies, and that's a problem. If we had 100 constituencies in the Senate, like you rightfully said, we have only 47 senators that are elected. So it means to top up in the event there is an imbalance, we have already agreed we nominate 16 women for now. Yeah, because they are disadvantaged in terms of that particular issue of being elected. We have agreed, and it's provided for. You nominate 6 from the onset. So it is easy because you only want to hit, you want to get around 20 ladies for you to now be able to say you are compliant. But you're talking about 290 constituencies. To balance, in the event the 290 are the 2/3, you need a half of that as the other third, so that you find yourself with the 400, and that the point we are trying to make here is, if we don't do it that way, then we complicate life for everyone. Kenyans must say, do we want a parliament of 400? Because that's the only way to go about it without affecting all the other provisions of the constitution, especially the Article 38 on the right to vie and get voted for. Whether you are a man, a woman, in whichever constituency, in terms of whether it's a ward and parliamentary constituency or a county.
And this is what I'm saying, that if you want to achieve that, even that issue of topping up is not what the constitution intends. The constitution says elective positions. In other words, nobody should be elected, or rather not more than 2/3 of gender should be elected. Now, in order for you to achieve that, which you borrow from South Africa, you need to change the structure
so
of the
that you issue a party list.
Party list, then you vote the party. Then the party assigns the seats. But here we vote constituencies, so that the constituencies is represented. Now, in South Africa, the ANC produces a list. You vote ANC, ANC posts those members of parliament to various constituencies. So that's how you achieve it easily. For us, we want it elected. You give, if you go to a mail where these guys are harassing our governor, and you make me the nominee, and you make a lady there, you can be sure that those guys, conservative as they are, will be heading for the man. So that would work.
But they voted in a female governor.
But look at all the problems they are giving.
When we're talking about Kawira's problems, you had said Meru is a conservative society, but they did vote in a woman. She ran as an independent. Yes, and they voted her in.
Exactly.
That's why
but we are saying, Olive, we are struggling to remember how many women were voted for. In fact, we are struggling. We have this discussion in the first instance because Bunge, as it sits right now, the National Assembly, is not gender compliant.
But I can tell you this.
So it's not easy to implement. That's the point. And for it to be implemented, it's an issue on its own that needs, I think, comprehensive.
But wasn't the failure? My question is this, right? Should the blame fall with the political parties? And I ask that again because of this. Maybe where they were nominating these women were areas where they're not their strongholds. Because in Homa Bay, Gladys Wanga on an ODM ticket won against all odds. Susan Kihika in Nakuru, Cecil Mbarire.
Women in Nakuru,
yes, all women. Yes.
But
not all women, but majority, a good number of women.
But you have to look at our society.
Barire in Embu.
In Meru, there was also women candidate, but they did vote for them. They just chose to vote for the men, even though they are women who are underfunded themselves.
But on what ticket were they running? My argument is this: if UDA in its strongholds, let's say Central Kenya is now a UDA stronghold, nominated women, right? Put up women for these positions. Would we not? Yes.
The point you're making, and which we it's countering what we are saying is this. that yes, a party can nominate only X gender. Is that constitutional? For example, are you going to deny a male in order for you to favor? You know, there are many
In the
things you need
spirit
to-
of affirmative
No,
action.
Wait. What we are saying is make it possible constitutionally,
Okay.
so that you avoid litigation. And to do that, this is not an easy thing to do. You must revisit the constitution.
I think this decision, I mean, this discussion boiled down to one thing. The framers, I think they missed it. They should have demanded that for appointive positions. Because elective positions, I have to agree with the doctor here, is a bit challenging. Because which constituency are you going to say now you are the one who is going to produce a woman? Which one? So unless you are going to proportional representation, like he says, we should not have demanded that for elective positions. And I can tell you that eventually in the next few years, in the next probably 10 years, we are going to have more women than men in that parliament. How do I know that? I look at my class, for example, the ones I'm teaching now. 65% in both classes. I'm teaching 2 classes. Constitutionalism and governance and ethics. Multimedia.
No, we don't usually elect educated people.
So, so 65% of these students are female. And that is not by accident. So the women are coming up, seriously. So in another 10 years, you may be talking about men not being represented and not women.
I think what is
Charles, the last one on this
I think what is happening is that we are still aware.
Educated people.
We are still aware that the former Chief Justice Emeritus wrote to the President to take Parliament home because of the same issue. And I think what the current government is doing is, number one, insulating itself. You can say we are doing something about this. And I think the current president is a brilliant person. We are doing something around this. It's only that we are getting headwinds as we
So
do
why
it.
can't he be
But
bold
basically,
enough?
I think you must allow him to also govern the way he knows how. What I'm trying to say is this. It will come out. We will see what this is all about. But trust me, elections don't start at that point where you're going to the polling station. They start even at the nomination level. If you subject me to a process of party primaries where I'm one and I have won, and then you're telling me, no, you have to sit aside because now we need this position for a lady, or then you do it Jubilee style. Do you know what Jubilee did? They invited people for interviews, and then you sit there, and then you're told this one won. And you don't know on what grounds. There was completely nothing other than maybe being asked this or the other question, and then they say it's Olive that is carrying the ticket. And you're surprised that they performed those so dismally. So my point is this. If you want to kill democracy, you don't necessarily kill it at the IBC level when they're supervising elections at the end of the day. You start killing it at the party primaries, at even how you do these things, how you relate with the people. That is a problem right there. So it is not easy to get that gender issue sorted out unless the whole process is considered, and the ultimate goal being to, like what Akili has said, if it's proportional representation where the seats go to the party and then the party shares them out as required by law, then that becomes easier. And that is a completely big issue.
All right, Paul.
You see, the way we do things, we do them, we do halfway. If they are serious about this, then they need to be very bold. They simply need to delete that clause with reference to elective positions.
Prof.
I want to give an example here. I want to give you an example. For example here.
I'm not afraid to check my Twitter,
Look at this. President team seek to tighten anti-graft laws. You cannot tighten anti-graft law in this country unless you delete entirely from the Constitution Article 93B with reference to you exhausting all appeal mechanisms before. So instead of trying to go around that, they just be broad enough, delete from the Constitution that article.
And maybe let's not go that route. We need it in there, but in order to achieve it, we need to re-engineer our representation. So I am saying we go proportional. That's how we shall achieve it. Otherwise, there's no any other way.
I agree with
All right.
you on that.
So the story you're talking about is this one by Moses Odhiambo. President Ruto team seeks to tighten anti-graft laws. And that leads me up to the topic of conversation, because I see we're top of the
Don't
hour.
allow Professor to take us to
How to lose an election, right? But Raila says he didn't lose. It was stolen.
you know, at the end of the day, there is a different person in government. How they got there is a subject of this conversation and many others. We are talking about, and this is the issue when Cecily was talking about there not being agents and so on. I think we now have to accept that our elections are not free and fair. And that is why we invest so much money, from the money of campaign to money of agents and so on. And I've argued that we've made this bed for ourselves, and that's why we are lying in it. Because there are simpler ways of doing an election. Other countries have done it. Big democracies like India do it. They don't spend as much as we spend. But for us, because we have decided to load it with other incentives, we like it as opaque as possible. We change IBC every time we want. Now, according to Kenya Kwanza, IBC is badly constituted. Now, according to Azimio, Cherera 4 are being persecuted. Tomorrow, it is, let's change Chebukati and so on. So, or in the previous time it was. So we always go for the wrong target. Truth be told, we have it from the Moi days. We have it from the Mlolongo days. We have it from the 2007 elections. We have it from 2013 elections, and even 2017 and 2022. Claims of rigging, evidence of rigging, violence, and so on. As a matter of fact, the one constant factor in all these elections is Ruto and Raila. Why? They were together in Pentagon, in ODM, when the elections were bungled, or when they said the elections were stolen in KICC. And you saw what happened there. And that time, Martha Karua was on the other side. And Kivuitu told us he doesn't know who won. And Kibaki said he was told he won. So we have a lot of evidence to indicate to us that something else other than normal elections and normal counting happens. Then you have Ruto leaving Pentagon and beginning to warm up to Kibaki. Then eventually he lands into Kibaki's system. He forgets Raila. Then you have them in 2013, elections, there's a petition, it doesn't happen, but somehow there's evidence of rigging. But elections are not annulled. In 2017, elections are annulled on account of rigging. In 2022, there's a dispute. Whether Kamago, whether who, whatever the case, there's a dispute. So when you look at it historically and you get to the root cause, our elections appear not to be free and fair. There seems to be this invisible hand of Maradona that seems to be scoring for certain people depending on who is watching and who is not watching. That's my initial submission. All
right. Professor Gitile Naituli, Raila still contends that he won, that he didn't lose this election, so this whole conversation people are having. But that's the thing. In this special report by Kennedy Mureithi, he spoke to Jeremiah Kioni, who is now, for all intents and purposes, speaks for Jubilee, the president's party. He spoke to the chief agent, Raila's chief agent, Saitabao Olekanchori. You know, these are not voices that you can just wish away.
Yes.
So what did you make of the special report?
Well, according to the people, according to the chief agent, according to Kioni, they think that they were not properly organized. That's what they are saying. They accept that they actually lost. You listen to them, and they assign the loss to very specific individuals. Junaid Mohammed, yes,
and the former ICT cabinet secretary.
Exactly. They don't even assign blame to the IMBC, according to them. And when you look at the whole structure, you are tempted to think it's okay, but still that doesn't solve our problem, like Daktari is saying here. I think the only way, because there is the claim, these claims of rigging, I think the only way to address conclusively that issue and build the national confidence in the elections, you have to remember that 8 million Kenyans chose to ignore the election because they didn't think that their vote actually would count. So to return the confidence in the democratic process, we may need a commission of inquiry, an open one, regular style, so that at
But
least.
I'm not sure you're not a commission on that one.
Why?
Right?
Okay.
So at least we know and understand the truth. But personally, I saw a lot of process which, in my opinion, were actually intended to humiliate the eventual candidate who came Jubilee. The Mount Kenya fellows decided that they have a right to choose a candidate for the people of Kenya, for Azimio. So they organized those interviews. They were organizing interviews as you. It shocked me that Raila actually surrendered himself to that process, because that process diminishes the integrity and the stature of the candidate who emerges. Because the rest of the country would wonder, who is this Mount Kenya fellows pretending to be interviewing candidate for us, for the rest of the country. Because the rest of the country is interviewing this candidate through the voting process. But you have another group here which is big and powerful, and selecting the candidate for Azimio. I was shocked that Raila actually surrendered to that process. So most people watching that process, they can see that the losing is starting very far. Because when a candidate is not taking a chance of your election, you see, when you go to organize an election, you are organizing a government. So you have the advisor team, you have basically the people who form your cabinet already in back rooms. You don't announce them the way they did also, because when you announce your government before the election, you have contracted all the enemies of the people you have announced. You have told those people, because every one of these politicians, there are people who don't like them. So you have surrendered those who don't like the people, or you have appointed before the voting day. So you keep quiet the way basically Ruto did. You talk to them quietly, you tell them when Kishinda you will be this minister, but you are not telling the country. So there was a lot that went wrong with the Azimio. The other thing that went so terribly wrong, and I think all those people commenting, they want to mention, is the fact that Uhuru Kenyatta was the chairman, a retiring president. He's the chairman of the party which is proposing a candidate. That candidate should have been the chairman of that party, because this president is retiring. But then he shares a party, of which, and then also the Azimio agreement and issues, 40% of government to somebody who has served 10 years and is going home. So the whole structure of that party, the way it was corrupted in a way that the people are just going to detest the structure, the way that structure was. So I am not taking away their complaint about rigging and all that, or stealing the election, because I think the way we can actually get to know the truth as a country and move forward is to have an investigation on exactly what happened, even in these fellows, because I cannot understand how you walk to Serena and tell us those stories and yet refuse to go to parliament, to that committee, because you have an opportunity now to tell the country what happened. Because a legal process has started. They ceded that opportunity they should have taken. Then you take the opportunity with the tribunal. So if you are going to be fired, but you have sent your peace as you know it. So the idea of resigning and skipping those committees, for me, I think is escapism, and I don't think it has assisted the country, because the issue here is you assess the country to know the truth, so that the truth can set us free, all of us.
All right. But perhaps they're exercising their right to...
Yeah, I thought that not defends the constitutional right of people to say, to speak or not to speak.
Yeah.
But more importantly, already we know the results one way or the other.
All right.
So
Charles, perhaps they did not want to incriminate themselves. Let me put it that way. But Charles, is Raila Odinga in denial? We had, and the reason I asked this, allow me to just give you some context. The reason I ask this is because you have Jeremiah Kioni saying Raila Odinga relied on civil servants.
Exactly.
And then you have his own chief agent saying if you told Raila Odinga this is light, and Junet Mohammed came and told him this is darkness,
But
he
this
will
is-
agree with Junet Mohammed. Actually, Saitabao Olekanchori said Junet Mohammed was essentially a principal. And when he raised the issues of ODM collapsing its structures, he was told by Junet to, these structures have not worked for us the last 4 runs for the presidency, so let us try another. I mean, if you keep failing with one thing, let us try something else. So do you think Raila Odinga is in denial that actually they let themselves down?
Let me put it this way. I have vied in Kiambaa and I lost. And at one point I met someone and I was really bitter. Of course you get bitter. And I was telling them this one has been stolen. That was on a one-on-one. So you asked me, what were you doing when they were stealing from you? Can you imagine government saying it was stolen from them? The reason as to why the law is very clear that the provincial administration and civil servants are not supposed to participate in elections is simply that the government is going to take advantage of that. So you are telling us someone else who is not inside government is taking advantage of the using the not and ensuring you don't utilize the so-called provincial administration. I don't think so. I think, to me, Olive, last night, and that's why my eyes are bloodshot, I was watching football up very late in the night. And a good team lost to a better team. Did Raila lose or did Ruto win? And I think that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. I think Ruto won. Ruto came up with something different. Wakili has enumerated how Raila has come, from where he started, the Pentagon, then he came up with the coalition for, I don't know, this, the other one, COD, then there was NASA wale wengine, then ultimately he had this. Bottom line, all that, is significant in there is about gatekeepers. You pick a few people that are from these big tribes that ostensibly are going to give you very many votes, put them together in an arrangement, promise this one publicly that he's going to be the cabinet minister for this one, so that the assumption is going to be his people are going to follow him, and then by extension land on your doorstep. And then why you don't do a full cabinet list then in the first instance is still strange. But basically there are people that you're enticing. On the other hand, Ruto came up with something unique that cuts across, because he realized I cannot do tribal arithmetics. They're not going to work for me. I don't have that control. He came up with the so-called hustler. And hustler cuts across. There is no definition of who a hustler is. And if you want to know, look at the people who have borrowed the money that has been put out there. I am sure if you have a list of those people, you'll be shocked that most of your colleagues that are not hustling have borrowed that money. So it cuts across. And he created that. He came up with that thing. A Kisi will feel like I'm a hustler. A Masai, it has nothing to do with tribe. And then he gave them a solution in the so-called bottoms up. He said, I have a solution to your problems. And do you know who is causing these problems in the first instance? It is these guys who are coalescing around Raila Odinga as Azimio. And whether you want to call them dynasties or you want to call them what, they have been there for too long, and that's why we have these problems in the first instance. The solution was there. Implementation of the solution was not along the period of the campaign, so people gave time. They are going to wait until you get to power, and then you implement that. So I think if you look at now how people are feeling, it is telling. But bottom line, he came up with something different that took away the uniqueness of Raila's style of campaign, and he had a solution that he said, wait, and do you know, nobody could explain what bottoms up was all about and how it will ultimately solve. Even the senior most individuals,
not even himself.
Even the senior most individuals in Kenya Kwanza struggled to explain how this solution is going to work. And do you know what? Those are the things Kenyans want, things that they don't understand that well, but they know there's a solution out there somewhere. All you need to do is put this guy in power, and we are okay, we are going to do fine. That pushed this campaign through and through, and that's why even in Mount Kenya region, it is not the people that he picked from there that won elections. If you want to know Raila lost, look at even the guys in Mount Kenya region and the other regions that were vying on Azimio-related political parties, they lost. So if they were losing, then it means the same goes for the person you're looking at the top. The other issue was, if you saw how Uhuru won, Uhuru didn't just sit back and the movements called Duraku, Kumira, Kumira. My friend, the mobilization around ensuring Uhuru won in Mount Kenya region where he's strong was huge. The assumption being anybody who's going to go and vote in Mount Kenya region is likely to go and vote for Uhuru.
This is in 2017.
Yes, exactly. I don't think I saw that in Nyanza where Raila is strong. Because there was no serious organized mobilization. Everyone was in Nairobi or this manner or the other manner of Mombasa or wherever it is. If they had done serious mobilization where they know for sure 99.9% of the people who turn out are going to vote for Raila, I think the story would be different. So I think we need to flip this and ask ourselves, is it him who lost, or is it Ruto who came up with a better strategy and won?
Okay, Dr. Prof,
yes.
just a quick second.
We need to agree that Raila is in denial.
Okay.
He's in denial. Actually, he's in denial. And if he's watching me, I want to tell him, you are in denial. You lost. And here is why you lost. You lost to a man who started studying politics during Moi's days. A man who was part of YK in 92. A man who has never lost an election since he started his business in elections. And you started with a man who was with you and knows you very well and left you after the Orange experience and went to organize how to win elections and organize Uhuru's first term, organize Uhuru's second term. And you lost because the man who was your prop wasn't with the government. In fact, I can say without blinking that actually the deputy president, the D in the deputy president was actually the deep state. That he knew, and deep state is not offices that people carry. People who, the shadowy people who have money and who know how to organize to take government. And if you want to see where the deep state is now, find out who is the chairman of KRA today and who is now the chairperson of what. Now, and ask what were they doing? Oh, Mara tax evasion, Mara what? These are guys who are organizing money here and sorting it out there and funding politics here. You want to know that the deep state was actually with Ruto is that he knew for sure that Uhuru did not have control. The Matiangis of this world did not have control. Kibichos did not know what was happening. He had it. He knew what the organization of government was. And he was confident. And he told us several times that mimi, nakaa kama mtu naweza kuibiwa. That was not a man who was not in charge of what he was doing. But was Raila in charge? Did he know what was happening? Look at what Babu Wino is saying. Totally out of shape that we thought this man was with us. Why did you think he was with you? What made you believe that he was with you? Did he even know what he was up for? So the point is that Ruto was in charge of his campaign. Ruto put together his strategy and superintended over it and worked over it, put money over it, and was all over the place making sure that it delivered. Ask the opposite. Who was working as hard for Baba or who was working for as hard in Azimio? They lost. They have to agree.
All right.
That's the only way to learn.
Prof, let me ask you this, right? Is it hypocritical for Raila to come and tell us Kilibiwo when you have the likes of Babu Wino saying he picked up the phone, called Karanja Kibicho and told Kibicho arrest Chebukati and let Cherera announce either Raila won or let there be a runoff. He went on to say, what is this? He went on to claim that what's his name, Matiang'i. How come at what point did Matiang'i go to apply and interview for a job at the UN? What did Matiang'i know? And so he's of the position that Uhuru, he also denies, so you could also say he's in denial, that Ruto and Uhuru ever fell out. But it appears that even that claim by Jeremiah Kioni, that Raila was relying on civil servants, that is illegal. When you have the chief agent of Azimio, that is Saitabao Ole Kanchori, talking about letters he signed being passed on to Musheru to pass on to the relevant agents or whoever, that is illegal because at the time, I mean, he was a cabinet secretary. So is it then hypocritical for Raila Odinga to try and flip it on the other side? Is this a case of who stole it better?
I think my position has been from a long time, even 2021, that Uhuru Kenyatta was never with Raila Odinga. And you look at the two, and there was no way. If you are Uhuru Kenyatta, and you want William Ruto to be president, you do exactly what Uhuru Kenyatta did. Okay? You take this fellow into your pocket, you keep him there until the election is over, until he loses the election. Because Jubilee, let's face it, was a failed administration. Totally failed administration. So, And Raila stepped aside. And he can shake the hand. There was nothing wrong with that. And he removed his troops from the streets. But then he don't enjoy any the Jubilee government. Stay aside. This election was going to be a coronation for Raila Odinga. He abandoned his philosophy. He even abandoned the idea of making IMBC compliance, because he had blamed the IMBC. He says that they embarked on the election. The court agreed with him. But when he went into government, because you can't tell me Raila was not in government, you would think the first thing he would do was to fix.
Interesting you mentioned that, because actually Babu Owino said when MPs tried to eject Chebukati and the two other commissioners, they were told, we will, quote, we will deal with Chebukati.
Exactly. So what I think is that this will probably the deep state now. This is why you plan long term, okay? Keep your friends close, your enemies even closer. Because I can tell you, the person who more likely to have put Uhuru Kenyatta on trial for some things that he has done, for missing investment, for very obvious transgressions. If you look at the debt burden that we are carrying, the person more likely to have done this man is Raila Odinga, not William Ruto. So what you see when you see Uhuru's behavior during the election, which side was he? You look at all his friends. All Uhuru's friends were with William Ruto. You understand? So he fell out with all his friends together with Ruto. I think...
which friends are these?
No, I mean...
Start from Justin Muturi, Speaker. Waiguru. Mention anybody who was close to
Uhuru Kenyatta. They
took off.
All of them. So what I think is this: there was a deep state at work, just guaranteeing that Raila Odinga does not become president. Now,
I'm telling you, the deep state was with the
yes, the other side. The thing is, Raila is a very trusting man, which is a mistake. An election is a very serious thing. It's not a joke. You know where I come from. Sometimes we are told when you are going to do something very serious, you don't even trust your wife with that information. Okay. Now, this is an election. It's not a joke. But this man trusted Uhuru Kenyatta 100%. 100%. But you know, having said that, let me say this, and I want to support him. I had a discussion with the president, long time, not after he became the president. Yeah? And I think that was almost 8 months actually before the election. And he told me that there is no power in this country which can make Raila president, because he want to be made president by someone else. So he told me that Raila went to Moi because he thought Moi would make him president. It did not happen. He went to Kibaki because he thought Kibaki would make him president. It didn't happen. He is now with Uhuru Kenyatta because he thinks Uhuru Kenyatta will make him president. It's not going to happen. And it did not happen. So like Dr. here said, this is somebody who understood Raila very well. Raila and Andola should have known that. Step back. Tell the president, support us, but let us run our ship. This is our business. This is our campaign. Now, and that happened very early. Things may very well have been different. Remember, they denied that even Raila was going to be a candidate for 2 years. They lost precious time denying, saying that the handshake had nothing to do with the presidency. Lost time, also confused people, because for 2 years, if you are denying, you have confused your voters. So there is a lot that I think for future candidates, there is a lot of analysis to do on what contributed to the outcome of this election when you look at it carefully. But what Ruto has demonstrated is that you need to take charge of your election. You need to know. Remember, Ruto was training his agents long before they were deployed, trained and explained exactly with a serious training manual what they are supposed to do. Meanwhile, I was told about Raila Odinga, the Mount Kenya Foundation, he told him that they will take care of the Mount Kenya region. That includes Nakuru, the rest of Mount Kenya counties, which I think they are about 11. Okay? Didn't they take care of it? They simply, there was nobody. I mean, I used to go to Meru, and wonder whether there was an election, because in the previous 2017 election, there were teams in those hotels planning voter turnout, planning this, but during this election, there was nothing. The Mount Kenya Foundation people were nowhere. They had already told Raila they will take care of this rich voter basket. It never happened. So I think Raila needed to do some serious rethinking. If he is ever going to be a candidate again, he needs to recalibrate. He needs to accept, because if you don't accept that you don't work with a strategy, if you don't accept a weakness you have, it's not possible for you to correct it. Okay? This idea, and I saw it in 2005. Raila wins the 2005 referendum. By winning 2005 referendum in his mind, he had already won 2007 election. That's how he lost it. By having a handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta in 2018, he had already won this election in advance. The idea of winning before you win is dangerous.
All right. So we need to take a break. But Charles, I know we're coming back with your thoughts. And he's talked about the referendum. And some argued that Raila lost the election at the BBI, when BBI tanked. What are your views? We take a break. We'll be back with more.
Recharge today and get upgraded.
Feliz Navidad, hijos.
This is the best Christmas ever.
Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Did you know shorter is better on YouTube Shorts? Stand a chance to win cash or free data every day. Buy the daily YouTube for 10 bundle and stand a chance to win cash or free data every day. Buy the YouTube for 10 bob bundle. Create a YouTube short with a hashtag shorter is better. Best video with the most likes stands a chance to win weekly cash prizes.
God rewards faithfulness. And he's saying to Abraham, you have been faithful. You have walked the journey, you've stayed the course. And I will show myself faithful on your behalf. When we pray, we say, God, we are trusting you for breakthrough. We are waiting on you for breakthrough. But do you know what? Sometimes it is God who is waiting on you.
Mimi naitwa Profesa Ole Musondoro na niko hapa nikupatia ushauri kama rafiki. Naona sasa Christmas imekaribia. Badala Christmas ifike kasi yako ni kuombaomba tu watu, sijui nitumie, sijui ninunulie kuku, sijui nifanyie nini. Ndugu yangu, anza kujipanga saa hii. Anza kuficha shilingi 100 mahali. Kila siku unaficha 100. Kila siku unaficha 100. Ikifika siku ya Christmas utakuwa na pesa mingi sana ya kujinunulia kuku, ng'ombe, mbuzi, kujipeleka out na hata kujirudishia shukrani. Ndugu yangu,
to get Christmas by Ole Msondoro, dial star 811 star 929 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Whether pitched in the grasslands of the Masai Mara or the Serengeti National Park, a tent brings a huge thrill that lurks in the four corners of the house. I'm up and about in Kenya to find out why more people are seeking cheaper, fun-filled excursions.
Well, this is the only female-run, female-owned garage in the whole of the Gambia. And get this, the CEO is only 30 years old.
Crystal
Rivers Residences, the future of fine living.
Postal Corporation of Kenya Staff Pension Scheme and Staff Retirement Benefits Scheme will be holding its 20th and 13th annual general meetings respectively on 14th December 2022 at the City Square Post Office Mezzanine 5 floor from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. to receive the audited financial statements and review performance for the financial year ended 30th June 2022. The event will be live on NTV, NTV's YouTube and Facebook, and on Zoom from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. All members who are unable to attend in person are invited to follow through NTV or our social media platforms. Zoom link will be shared to members on phone. All are welcome. Postal Corporation of Kenya Staff Pension Scheme. My pension, my comfort.
Welcome back to AM Live, and I'm joined by Dr. Martin Olo, Professor Gitile Naituli, as well as Charles Munyui. Dr. Martin Olo, advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Professor Gitile Naituli teaches at the Multimedia University, issues of management leadership, but he's a governance expert, and we're also joined by governance consultant Charles Munyui. Charles, before we went on the break, I asked a question. Part of the issues that were raised in that special report by Kennedy Murray, the Why Raila Lost, that you can find on ntvkenya.co.ke in its entirety. They say, first of all, when he and President Uhuru Kenyatta lost the BBI, that essentially he lost the election at that point.
Well, first and foremost, before we went on the break, my brothers here were on some conspiracy theory that Uhuru installed Ruto. I don't think so. And if you want to know it, that might not necessarily be true. Post the win, then Ruto would have been at least cozy with the president. And you remember when he was giving his initial acceptance speech, or speech at in Karen, he said, I have not spoken to this guy for... He basically was saying, don't even go there. This guy was antagonizing
he had not been congratulated.
He has not even congratulated me. And I think that ultimately ended up in the public domain. I know conspiracies can be... but looking at how Uhuru operates, I don't think that is like him. When he said he's supporting Raila, he was supporting Raila. And there was activity around it. Even those guys who are talking about money, they are saying money was coming from somewhere. Hatujui ni wapi, lakini there was money, it was all over, and mentioning all these people. Importantly, to me, Raila lost by around 200,000 votes. I think it's the smallest margin by which he has lost in elections. So largely Raila lost because he did not have his game plan together. Kiambu has huge numbers where the president comes from. I did not see a proper campaign strategy for Kiambu, for example. The same energy that was being used to campaign in Kiambu was being used to campaign in Laikipia, with a lot of respect to Laikipia. Yeah, you know, even identifying the key pillars of your campaign, good people. Forget about now the ones who are telling you all you need is 10% from Kenya region. Honestly, you have the audacity to tell someone that will give you 20% and you'll be okay. So the rest must come from somewhere. And you are telling him 20%. Honestly, you are coming from being on top of this, being the government, and you are saying we can provide from our region 20%, not even 30, not even 40%. How do you then win? It means even them, they stopped working, because they knew as long as he gets 20%, then they have jobs of work to do. They will be appointed to these or the other positions. And when you are targeting 20%, trust me, it's more likely you're going to get 10% of 12%, which might not be sufficient. So if it was a question of all those other things, like I have said earlier, then you would have seen a trajectory where those other leaders from the mountain are losing, and him, as Raila Odinga, is winning. So if Uhuru was sort of like supporting Ruto, then you would have seen a system whereby whatever it is that happened, then the other members, the other people that are vying are winning at least, so that even his party is strong. But that did not happen. So To me, they lost because the other guy was better. Ruto, in as far as I'm concerned, was better. In as far as BBI is concerned, again, I refuse to accept that as true. The reason being, fine, you lost, but number one, BBI was not lost in with the people. This process was taken through the due process. It went to the county assemblies where people's representatives are, and it went through. It went to to Parliament, and I want to believe even there, especially the National Assembly, or rather the Senate, you know, there was something positive about it. In the mindset of the average person, it could have been amounted to a loss in terms of the court determining that this process was had issues, especially on two issues only. The issue of the president participating in this and the domiciling of constituencies, which the courts decided was supposed to be something the IBC was supposed to do. Yeah, on a schedule actually, not even the substantive bill. So what we are saying is, did they talk about, did they relate with it? Did they carry forward that frustration, or did they just hang around there and decide we have lost and look like they had lost? It might have taken the airs from the sales, but trust me, to me, it is bigger than BBI. BBI could have contributed a small percentage, and the other issues subsequent or before, including the formula, the issue of the formula, passing a formula that is supposed to come from the Senate on sharing of revenue that is meant for county governments, and you are struggling for years to pass this, yet when you have a majority in both houses. So I think all those things could have contributed in the mindset, but the bigger picture was 200,000 votes. What happened in Kiambu, for example, were those votes not, if the president and his team had dedicated sufficient energy and put together a structure in Mount Kenya region, and especially in Kiambu, those votes were available, and he would have gotten them. So I think he lost because Ruto was better.
All right, and Dr. Tari, and Prof, just prepare to answer next this question of, because you said Raila is a trusting man. Did he trust the wrong people, or, okay, so we'll get to that. But now first, Dr. Tari, as you respond also to what...
I think that what my colleague has done is to not give credit to BBI for having contributed to the momentum by Ruto against Uhuru, and
which is what I intend to ask you, which is, did Ruto win this election on messaging? Because some of the things that were raised was BBI, the handshake.
Yes.
And then Jeremiah Kioni said Kenyans don't care about corruption.
Absolutely. So three things really. One, Ruto was very strong on messaging. I think we've alluded to it severally here. And he reached to his constituency and he got it well. On BBI, he was able to deconstruct it by saying this is another dynasty project. And for sure there were sweeteners there for dynasty. Who was supposed to be prime minister? He managed to tell us it was meant for Uhuru. What were these a number of constituencies? He managed to show us that those constituencies were necessary so that they could vote for a prime minister, which was Uhuru. So he actually said this thing was about power sharing. These guys are not about to leave this country alone. So he demonized it in such a way that people actually... forget about the court. The court rejected it on account of law and so on. But people rejected BBI on account of it contributing to the dynasty and the hegemony. Now, I particularly was very disappointed with the BBI because I thought that BBI was a very good opportunity for us to think through a number of our constitutional issues, for example. It didn't go far enough to talk about devolution. It didn't get us anything new, I mean anything sensible. Apart from just arranging for jobs, BBI was a fiasco from a constitutional moment that we thought we had. Of course, you can see the president is also trying to create a constitutional moment by writing. His memo is very well couched in terms of language and in terms of dexterity, very well. So he might just generate a constitutional moment. But we lost it at BBI. Let's see what this other bit comes to do. The bottom line is that messaging, Ruto was superior. He had gained momentum against Uhuru and Raila together. And then, Kioni says it very well. He didn't care. You call him dirty, whatever you said, he enjoyed it, and people still loved him. So the issue, oh, sijui mwizi, oh, sijui nini, those things didn't stick. Any dart that was thrown at him didn't stick, because Kenyans would say, but who is not a thief? You know, nane hajaiba. You know, so it was as dismissive as it came. Bottom line, this is not a country, and by the way, this is why Baba gets it wrong. This is not a country that believes, oh, sijui liberation, and oh, Kungu Karumba, oh, sijui Ngama. You know, the things Baba cares about. Those things do not mean anything to 3/4 of the Kenyan population. They have no history. When Kenyan population wants to hear, hey, how much money do you want to put in your pocket? Hey, the price of food and whatnot. And those things come with populism, not with principled politics. So messaging, yes, your spirit at it. Has Baba run out of message? Yes, yes. And he had, and you know, the sooner he realizes that, the better for him, because I think he should also be preparing to do the things he does, but in the background, so that other people and other ideas can come up. I was listening to Babu Owino, you know, yesterday, and I think if Babu Owino actually keeps on doing what he's doing, he might actually be just a relevant guy, because he knows what, he has a constituency, he has been around. We have shifted. The Babu Owinos of this day, the Simbaratis of this day, will come into this space of hustlers, but not Baba.
All right. And Prof, now you said Raila is a trusting man. Yeah. And Saitabao Ole Kanchori talked about writing a book, and he said in his book he describes Makau Mutua as a deaf-mute. Did he say deaf-mute mouse? I can't recall. He said deaf-mute mouse. See no evil, hear no evil, that he was put in charge of the command center, but when things were going wrong, he pretended everything is okay. There was also the accusation, which I mentioned previously, from Saitabao, that Raila relied heavily on Junet Mohammed, but also Saitabao said, you know, somebody has to carry the cross, and it turns out that Junet is the man who will carry the cross for this failed election. And Raila they kept telling us he's the fifth. There was also an allegation that Mount Kenya lied to Raila Odinga, Edwin Sifuna, saying there was no return on investment. The constant for the last 5 elections has been Raila Amolo Odinga. So while Saitabao may say Raila is the best president Kenya has never had, does the ball ultimately land in his court, fall in his court? Because he has been the constant for the last 5 elections. The decision to rely on the likes of, maybe I'm not casting any aspersions, but if we are to believe what has been said by his chief agent in the last election, what has been said by those who spoke, if we are to believe that, then he relied on the wrong people. Ultimately, does that not reflect poorly on his decision-making?
It does. It even reflects how he would have governed if he became the president. Because you see, organizing the campaign is the same as organizing how to run the country. And that's what clever people do. You can have your occasional cabinet in the Junet Mohammed and the company, but you also set aside an official communication channels to cross-check the information you get from those who know you, who read your mind, and the mouth what you are likely to agree on. But now you have independent thinkers somewhere who you consult on either organizational structure, on critical decisions that you must make. So I don't think Raila and those, according to that chief agent, I don't think he had those structures. But I can assure you, to hand them, and he has them now as in government. Because he understands, you remember the Mbeo Peaks invasion in Cuba, when the Americans wanted to take over Cuba, basically. Before they landed there, the entire Canadian cabinet told they will succeed. Okay? That it will be an operation of less than 6 hours. That's how simple they saw it. But that was groupthink. This is the people who you are dealing with in his idea. And from that time, the American president always has 2 parallel advisors. There are those with him, and there are those who consult outside the system. They are either in universities or they are business, established business people that he consults. From the Mbeo Peaks, they learned their lessons on that fiasco. So when you look at how Raila ran this campaign, according to what we hear now, from the insiders, it appears that he basically trusted all of them just the same way he trusted Uhuru Kenyatta to deliver for him. And I think that was wrong, because you can see the Ruto's intelligence was that he knew in this election he can't rely on the tribe, because Uhuru had already started attacking the tribal dominance of both the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin. He had already done that publicly. So what does Ruto do? He designed to dismantle the politician. You know, the politician, Kenyan politician have been very brilliant. They are the people who have come to you, you are miserable. You can't send your children to school, you can't eat. Okay, you are a Kikuyu. You are Luo or you are Turkana, the misery is the same. But they convince you that your misery is better because the president come from your tribe. Ruto dismantled that by making the Asolas Firo united, regardless of the tribe. So the Raila TV and a think tank, they would have seen this election was more like 1963 election, where there was no tribal emotions, zero tribal emotions, because the Asola narrative united the Kenyans as one entity, one suffering entity from the dominance of a particular section of the society. They could have crafted a counter message. They failed to craft a counter message. So them, they decided to make Ruto their message. And once you make a candidate your message, you are selling the candidate. Because the fewer you mention your opponent, the better for you. So they made him, they talked about, I don't know, thief, about who. People never took them serious, because this is already your competitor, and you have a right to mislabel and do whatever. So they are discounted all that. So the nature of Raila Odinga, the trusting nature, and I want to agree with someone who said that is the best president Kenya probably will never have, because I mean right now, given his age and everything, it's really to stress the imagination to think that he still won't be relevant. But he really does trust. And that is both positive and negative, because we say trust, but verify. He doesn't verify. He trusts you, and that's it.
All right, Charles.
Yes.
My question is this, right? A lot was said about agents.
Yes.
And money for agents. And where did this money go? Who was responsible for paying these guys that apparently never received their monies, and so, vacated their stations? And I think, sorry, my mistake, it was Babu, not Saitaba, who talked about it being unfair for Junet to have to carry this cross, because he was saying, why would Junet take the monies for agents and then at the expense of whatever he would have gotten under a Raila Odinga government? So he spoke out in defense of Junet Mohammed. We saw Saitaba also saying he doesn't know the money was to go directly to the agents. How big a role do you think this disorganization around agents, how big a part do you believe it played in Raila's loss?
Let me start
or
by
theft, depending on which side.
Let me start by saying this. It is my considered opinion that in future, we should not even need agents. I think IBC should be able to do its work competently. We should have appropriate technology to ensure you don't have to rely on agents. And having said that, courtesy of, I think, the ruling 5 years ago, the judgment on IBC was easier in terms of admitting agents as opposed to in the past. I'll give you an example. The amended Elections Act, I think, provided that in the event a party does not give a candidate, for example, then the candidate himself or herself can pick an agent. So you could have had as many agents as the number of candidates. And I think Jubilee wrote and said, we are not providing an agent for the party, who would have been cross-cutting, checking out or representing the MCA, representing the woman rep, representing the senator, governor, and all of them. So they said, the woman rep on a Jubilee ticket in this polling station, that is a stream, should have an agent. The governor can have an agent. The MCA can have an agent. Those are Jubilee people. Jubilee is an Azimio coalition political party affiliate. So, you would expect a discussion around, much as the agents, presidential election, president as a candidate agent are not probably available. You need a machinery that tells you there is a problem here. Can we pick so and so to manage this process and tell us that we are represented in terms of the looking at our votes, because at the end of the day, the documents are there for everyone to see. The counting is happening in the full glare of all the agents that are there, and the tallying and all that at all levels. So the disorganization that was there is what led to all these things, because you are not telling me you are only relying on the agents that were purely in those polling stations to represent the presidential candidate. What about the other candidates? They had people in there. The governor of Kiambu, for example, had agents in literally just about all polling stations. So what was the relationship between that particular candidature and the candidature of the Azimio presidential candidate? What exactly happened? What is this network that was there, and especially against a backdrop of, and I know Prof is banning, he's even distracting me, because he's saying, he's going like teacher, like he wants to speak, and I think we need someone to manage Prof in future, because you know he has a way of distracting you when you're just about to deliver a point. Yeah, I agree. I think Prof should sit on the other side, and we are not discussing Kawera. I don't know why he's so anxious. So on a serious note, I think to me, if you look at what happened in Kiambu, for example, are you aware that Raila had over 200,000 votes, yet the candidate on a Jubilee ticket had 96,000 votes? So Raila beat him over 100,000 votes. Yeah, are you aware that the candidate, the aspirant who had sought a ticket on Jubilee, Jubilee ticket, the cousin to the president, ended up being a running mate for Django, who ended up getting 236,000 votes? So these are the issues, and the winner had 340,000, Wamatangi. So these are dynamics of what happened in, for example, in Kiambu as a study case, that if you look at it critically, it is not all those things that people are alluding. It is a dynamics of how did these parties handle their primaries. When you don't invite someone even for that interview, I understand she was not even invited for the interview for the position of governor. Much as she had paid everything that was requisite amounts that were required, she had done all the forms, she had done all those things, she was not even invited, she was just dismissed, and then she ended up with someone else. Someone else who ended up beating square the person that ended up with the ticket on a Jubilee ticket. And do you think the supporters of that person, 50%, could have maybe come this size if there was a discussion around the fact that this is the better candidate, and then the fallout managed, or even maybe organize, primaries in some of these places instead of interviews? So I think it is bigger than just saying we do not have agents, or they were not paid. They were paid this way. Of course, that's also a factor. That issue of money, there is a way people comfortably will pocket that money and disappear with it. There is a way, and I have a problem. I will say this time and again. Government cannot complain of losing an election. I mean, courtesy of it being stolen. I think it doesn't make sense that you're telling me your government, the chiefs are there, and someone has the audacity to say the government or Raila relied on the chiefs and the provincial administration. Then the chiefs did not do their work. I think it's a contradiction. You either rely on the chief and they work because you're government and you've convinced them you're winning, or you don't rely on them.
Okay.
So I think to me it is bigger than the issue of who did what with the agents. It's disorganization, pure and square, and handling of party primaries for the respective political parties, and general belief that all Raila needed was 10% in Kenya region and it was going to be good. If they had indicated Raila needed 50% in Kenya, for example, he would have gotten 30 and it would have been good.
All right, 30 seconds each. Your last word on this subject, Terry. Sorry, let him start so I go this way.
A good discussion. I think that if anybody who is near the Azimio group are listening, the earlier you accept the loss, the better. You rethink, you re-strategize. As a party, as a coalition, the earlier you make up decisions, for example, whether it's Kalonzo Musyoka now or Martha Karua now, the earlier the better, because William Ruto is running. He's thinking about 2027 and beyond. He's talking about 2032 because he's planning for 10 years. So basically what the politicians or the political class is in Azimio needs to do is to think about their future. And to think about their future is accept the laws, accept the fact that you slept on the job, and someone else won.
All right.
The unfortunate thing is that that person who won was a deputy president. Now he's the president. He is fortified.
All right.
Yeah.
Probably that's one of the criticisms, that they took too long, like, to figure themselves out. Is Kalonzo supporting Raila Odinga and all that? Prof, your last word in 30 seconds, if possible.
I just want to say that Bobo Wino is disingenuous to say that Junaid Mohammed would not have taken Agent Money or whoever or anyone else, because that would undermine themselves for prospective appointments. That's not exactly true, because these fellows had won that election. Since in their mind they had already won the election, nothing was stopping them from keeping that money instead of having the agents. So I think you need to think beyond that.
So internal review is what I'm hearing from the two of you. Charles, your last word, 30 seconds.
I think Raila should move on, should appreciate that this has happened, and he should now start putting together a better house and a better team, if for nothing else, for guiding the next set of leaders. He needs to sit down with the likes of Bobo Wino. He's fiery. He's a mobilizer, and he's been loyal. And I think loyalty should be the capital. It should be what counts largely when it comes to some of these things. Remember, he's based in Nairobi, and he's not back home as a senator or governor back home. He's here. The center, the seat of government is here. So if we can talk to such people and help him appreciate some of these things, and he says what comes to his mind, he shoots and discusses later.
All right,
so,
but this is a man who's facing a case in court over something that was captured on CCTV. I don't want to say much more on the subject.
He must run. That's exactly why he must run.
Okay.
The more the case, the more notorious.
All right, so I will conclude the conversation.
Again, like I said,
at this point.
I think we have seen even discussions around them discussing that matter with the victim and all that. So I don't want to dwell on that, because again, we were not prepared to discuss that. But basically we are saying what Wakili said earlier here. What do Kenyans look for? What do Kenyans go for? Right. Have you seen the speed at which cases are being cleared in our courts? Okay. Facing leaders after the fact, not even before the fact, after the fact, after you've been named to be this, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the morning, voila, you did not commit this, it was an illusion. So that should guide us.
All right, so I have to bring the conversation to a close. This was AM Live. We had Charles Munui, governance consultant, Professor Gitile Naituli, governance expert, and Dr. Martin Olo, an advocate of the High Court. Gentlemen, Charles, I mean, if I can speak in defense of Prof, I think he was enjoying the conversation. Yes. I don't think there was any malice intention there. All right, so that's it for AM Live. I will see you on Friday with a youth perspective. Tomorrow morning, we have Zainab Ismail. Have yourself a wonderful day.
Fruity freshness in every sip.
The 2022 FIFA World Cup will see the best footballers on the planet do battle. Morocco cruised through qualifying, but can the Atlas Lions carry that form to Qatar? Karim Benzema's return to the national setup makes champions France even stronger. And Rodrigo is ready for a breakout tournament with Brazil. The clock is ticking on the countdown to Qatar.
Crystal Rivers Residences, the future of fine living.
The Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT, will hold its annual Delegates Conference at the lakeside city of Kisumu on the 13th and 14th of December 2022 at the Sitam Church Hall in Kisumu County. It's a great opportunity for teachers to reassess and reflect on NAT's achievements and challenges of the past year and set the agenda for the future. Watch the live panel discussion on Tuesday 13th December from 3 p.m. and catch the live events on the 14th of December at 12 p.m. only on NTV.